Ever since the demo of Methaphor Refantazio, I wanted to make a counter-tank build with Hulkenberg. Her Knight's Proclamation makes it that she is almost always attacked by the enemy. This combined with the traditional counter or revenge Shin Megami Tensei, or Persona games usually have, would have made an insane build. Unfortunately, those passives do not exist in this game. There's a new iteration of counter once you unlock her elite archetype. So if you haven't made it to the 5th biome, then consider saving this to your watch laters to avoid any spoilers. And with that out the way, let's get into this, yeah? Depending on your background with Atlus games, counter is either good or bad. In Shin Megami, counter is a weak physical attack that happens 50% of the time if you were attacked by a physical attack. In Persona, it reflects any physical attack 10% of the time, which is much stronger. So with these two iterations now covered, the Paladin's counter is a buffed version of Persona, as it starts off at 15%, which is a 50% buff! 15% may still seem low, but we'll increase that in a bit. Unlike the other archetype lineages, Knight has another elite version. Dark Knight comes with magic counter. It's the magical version, meaning you could technically be invincible if RNG's on your side by reflecting any attack. Now I'm sure some of you are already typing that there's an accessory that does this 100% of the time. Yes, and you're correct. This does take up an accessory slot, however, and it could only reflect physical or magical, while this build can do both. Something you may not know is that bosses in Atlus games are programmed to do their gimmick. If the player prevents that gimmick from working, then the boss just spams almighty attacks, which usually just kills you. Since you're in the 5th biome, you should have come across the Dragon Trials. Of these dragons, there's one that a good majority of the community has struggled with. I'll show you why, so if you haven't done so yet, or you consider this spoilers, click on the timestamp that says spoilers over. 3, 2, 1. So the 4th and final trial is a pretty cool fight, as it could use any archetype abilities. I'm gonna fast forward and show you how the turn should be if you let it do its gimmick. It'll swap archetypes, changing its weakness and move pool to keep you on your toes. Each turn can be stressful as you're healing up big damage. Now if you go into this fight with just one armor nullifying fire, it will use its almighty attack, instantly killing you. Notice how its attack pattern just went out the window? That's because the game reads the party nullifying fire, even if it's just one person. This will happen the same with the mirror accessory. So that is why I do not recommend using these accessories. Even though Hulkenberg can reflect any element, if you look at her default resistance, it has no nullify, drain, or reflect, so the boss will act normal. So now that we've gone over why this build is still relevant, even though there's the mirror accessories in the game, let's go over what you'll need. The Paladin archetype is preferred because it comes with Holy Knight's Proclamation, which is a buff version of Knight's Proclamation. It does the exact same thing, but now puts you into guard stance, which reduces all damage we take by 50% and covers any weakness so you don't take extra damage or give the enemy another turn. Knight's Defense is a stage 3 buff so you could tank any hits that didn't get reflected. Counter was already explained. Holy Knight's work is a great heal and it removes any debuff so you could tank easier. Revitalize 3 gives us 6 MP back per turn, making Knight's Proclamation almost free. As you can see, Paladin has 5 skills and passives worth inheriting, versus Dark Knight who has magic counter, Flawless which is a free stage 1 defense buff. The attack and agility doesn't matter too much since we're here to mitigate damage. Instant recovery is nice since status ailments suck. Dark Knight only has 3 good skills or passives worth inheriting, so Paladin saves us 5 slots. Now that you know why we're using Paladin versus Dark Knight, you'll want magic counter from Dark Knight to reflect any attack. Sturdy stance from Samurai. The main reason is for the negative effect of the passive. It's mostly viewed as a negative because you rather dodge the damage and take 0 than take 50%. This build, however, wants to get attacked, so it has a higher chance of reflecting the enemy's attack. A reflected attack ends the enemy's turn, while a dodge attack only takes away 2 of their turns. So for any attack that doesn't get reflected, we only take half of the damage, which further gets reduced because of Holy Knight's Proclamation. Dodge Master from Pugilist. Now the name does not match what it does at all. It prevents us from getting critically hit, so this further reduces any damage we would be taking, making us an impregnable wall. Unshaken Will allows us to do our job by preventing any mental status ailments. We can't protect the team if we're taking a nap. As for equipment, you'll want the Lance of Judgment. This will increase the chance to counter, which is what this build revolves around, so it's definitely needed. You could get the base weapon, the Lance of the Old God, in the Skybound Avatar, which is the second to last dungeon you're forced to go to. You could then purify it at the church for this amazing weapon. From rough testing, this is a 20% increase to counters. For armor, you could use Heavily Raiment that has the highest defense. I personally like the Brawn Breastplate for the 30% increased HP. Who doesn't love seeing HP cap? You could use the Heavily Raiment if you farmed enough health incense. For gear, Surging Greaves are a fantastic option. They recover 59 HP per turn, and you can actually be out healing the damage you take, since all damage will be reduced by 75%. You could acquire the base item, Medic Greaves, while getting your weapon. Remember to purify it. As for accessories, the Venom Ward Charm allows us to be immune to all ailments. I thought this was a nice touch, but the physical ailments don't restrict the build like mental does, so you could change this if you want. You could get this after collecting golden beetles. Now this build is great as you take 75% less damage like I stated prior, while ending the enemy's turn 36% of the time. I ran a sample size of getting hit 100 times, and those were the results I got back. Now some of you may be thinking, what if you increased your luck? I did just that. I gave myself 30 luck, which we didn't have before, and the results are kinda disappointing. Either the luck doesn't affect the counter, or I was really lucky the last time, because it only went up to 39% after 100 attacks. This could just be variance. This is why I didn't recommend any luck items prior in the equipment section. While you can use this build on anyone, it does excel on Hulkenberg because of her natural growth rate. I was originally going to use her for her follower guard duty and special guard duty ability. When the protagonist is attacked with a single target attack, or his weakness is being exploited, Hulkenberg will come in and protect him by guarding the damage. I thought this was so cool and I wanted to bring that to life, but after experimenting the last 3 days, this rarely happens because it doesn't cover AoE damage. The only time it works is if you get hit by a single target attack, but since this strategy revolves around Holy Knight's proclamation, this situation hardly ever occurred. Maybe this build is just too good. Anyway, this build can be taken up another level thanks to her exclusive Royal Knight archetype. It has the unique Omni counter, which reflects both physical and magical. Noble Knight's Soul also allows us to get a small crystal every time we use a proclamation the next turn, which we always will be. I originally thought the counter and magic counter would stack additionally with Omni counter, but after testing, my data doesn't reflect this. The only thing this royal does is save us an inherit slot. So you'll want Sturdy Stance and Dodge Master. Unshaken Will isn't 100% needed now, since we naturally get instant recovery. It isn't an instant cure however, as you do have to wait a full turn to cleanse, which can be the chink in your armor for the enemy to exploit. You can of course use an item to solve this problem, freeing up another inherit slot. The 1 or 2 remaining slots can be anything your team needs. The equipment is the exact same. You can however use the utilitarian manual, so you could use your powerful synthesis skills. You can purchase this from any magic shop after getting Alonzo to Magic Shop Deal Maker. Hopefully you give this build a try and see how fun it is to tank every attack in the game, and don't forget to subscribe for more Methaphor Refantazio builds. And if you want to hit the HP cap while using the best armor piece, then consider checking out my incense farming guide right here. Until the next video, I'll see ya.